Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going to a place
Yeah.
that I don't think anybody would ever really want to visit.
Right.
Devil's Island,
Uh-huh.
the infamous penal colony.
Yeah.
Um, so get ready for a journey through history that's both fascinating and chilling.
Definitely.
And this isn't just about a prison.
Right.
It's really a story about human resilience and the dark side of punishment.
Yeah, and
And we've got historical accounts, geographical descriptions, even personal tales
Yeah.
from those who lived through this.
Absolutely.
So buckle up.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed this deep dive,
Uh-huh.
don't forget to check out our YouTube channel,
Right.
Untold Chronicles,
Yep.
and hit that subscribe button for more incredible stories.
Yes, definitely.
So Devil's Island, right?
Yeah,
This place has a reputation.
it does.
But I think what's often overlooked
Mm-hmm.
is that it wasn't always intended as this just brutal hellhole.
Right. It wasn't sort of set up to be this torture chamber from the get-go.
Right.
It was born out of a kind of necessity in 19th century France.
Okay.
They were facing severely overcrowded prisons.
Oh, so they had a problem back home.
Exactly.
Right.
And the idea was to use these remote colonies,
Okay.
like French Guiana,
Yeah.
as a deterrent.
Oh, good.
Like a place so harsh that it would make people think twice about committing crimes.
So instead of trying to solve the problem back home,
Right.
they just shipped it off to a remote island.
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah, they chose French Guiana specifically for its just unforgiving climate
Uh-huh.
and the isolation of the Salvation Islands,
Okay.
particularly Devil's Island. Think dense jungles, scorching heat,
I'm already sweating.
and waters teeming with sharks. I mean, escape was practically impossible.
It sounds less like a deterrent and more like just a death sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it was really designed to break people,
Yeah.
their spirits, just
Yeah.
crush them.
Wow. So what was the journey like for those condemned to this island?
Oh, man, just imagine, being crammed onto a ship in deplorable conditions for weeks.
Oh, God.
I mean, it was just a breeding ground for disease and despair.
So they're already broken before they even get there.
In a lot of cases, yeah.
Ah.
By the time they arrived, many were just completely broken, stripped of their identities, treated less than human. The journey itself was part of the punishment.
That's just horrific. And then to face those living conditions on the island. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to even imagine.
So picture this. Cramped, unsanitary cells, barely enough food to survive on, and disease lurking around every corner.
Yeah.
It wasn't just imprisonment. It was this slow, agonizing ordeal.
And it was given the name the dry guillotine for a reason.
Exactly. It's very evocative.
Yeah.
You weren't executed outright, but the conditions themselves just chipped away at your life day by day.
We often hear about, the brutality of Devil's Island. But what did this dry guillotine actually involve? How did it work?
It was,
Yeah.
well, it was this multifaceted system designed to crush the human spirit.
Okay.
Aside from the physical deprivation, there was this constant psychological manipulation,
Oh, wow.
constant surveillance, arbitrary punishments for even the most minor infractions,
Okay.
the total lack of any kind of hope.
Okay.
And then, of course, the lack of medical care.
Right.
Injuries and illnesses were often just left untreated, leading to slow, agonizing deaths.
Yeah.
It was really a system of neglect and cruelty that wore people down until there was just nothing left.
So even if you survived, the harsh environment, the labor, the system itself was designed to break you.
Yeah, pretty much. But even amidst all this darkness, there were these incredible stories of resilience.
Okay.
Stories like that of Alfred Dreyfus,
Uh-huh.
A high-ranking officer who was wrongly accused of treason.
His case, the Dreyfus affair, that became a massive scandal in France, didn't it?
It did. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
It was a pivotal moment in French history.
Mm-hmm.
It exposed these deep societal divisions and the pervasiveness of anti-Semitism at the time.
Yeah.
Dreyfus was like a convenient scapegoat, right?
Yeah.
A Jewish man in a predominantly Catholic society.
It's shocking how prejudice can lead to such a blatant miscarriage of justice.
It really is. It's a chilling reminder of how easily individuals can become victims of just fear and hate.
Yeah.
Dreyfus spent years in solitary confinement on Devil's Island before finally being exonerated.
Wow.
But the scars of his ordeal, they remained.
Right.
It also highlights the crucial role of a free press, by the way.
Yeah.
Emile Zola's famous J'accuse letter
Right.
brought the truth to light, fueled public outrage, and that eventually led to Dreyfus's release.
So even in the face of such injustice, there were these glimmers of hope
Absolutely.
and the power of truth
The
prevailing.
truth will out. Another captivating story is that of Henri Charrière,
Oh, yeah.
better known as Papillon.
Yeah.
His escape attempts and subsequent book brought the horrors of Devil's Island to the world's attention.
His story's almost synonymous with Devil's Island.
It is.
He was determined to escape, wasn't
Absolutely. He made numerous attempts, each more daring than the last,
he? Wow.
using anything he could find just to try and break free.
Yeah.
His book, while it's been debated for its accuracy,
Right.
captures the raw determination of a man desperate for freedom
Yeah.
and exposes the brutality of the penal system.
It's incredible how one man's story could have such an impact on the world's perception of Devil's Island.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
It's through these personal accounts, these glimpses into individual struggles, that we can truly grasp the human cost of such a system. But the story Devil's Island goes beyond these individual experiences. It's about the evolution of a society's approach to justice and punishment.
So how did this place, once a symbol of brutal punishment, eventually come to an end?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, by the 20th century, Devil's Island was facing mounting criticism.
Okay.
Reports of abuse, inhumane treatment, and staggering death rates.
Oh, wow.
Those were reaching the public,
Okay.
and it forced people to start questioning the ethics of such a system.
So there was a shift in societal values happening.
Yeah.
People were starting to see this kind of punishment as unacceptable.
Exactly. The world was changing, and those brutal methods were no longer aligned with evolving ideas about justice and rehabilitation.
Right.
And the financial burden of maintaining the colony also played a role,
Okay.
as critics questioned the cost of upholding such a system.
It's interesting how these factors combined to force a reevaluation of Devil's Island.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a specific event that led to its closure?
World War II had a significant impact,
Yeah.
with resources stretched thin and priorities shifting.
Really?
The French government could no longer justify the expense and manpower required to maintain the colony.
So in a way, the war served as a catalyst for change.
You could say that.
What happened to the prisoners once the decision to close the colony was made?
In 1953, after nearly a century of operation,
Wow.
the last prisoners left Devil's Island,
Yeah.
marking the end of a dark chapter in history.
Really? The end of an era?
It was, many were transferred to other prisons,
Uh-huh.
while some were finally granted their freedom.
It's hard to imagine what it must have been like for those who had spent years, even decades,
Right.
trapped on that island to finally step foot on free soil again.
It must have been an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
It's a moment that speaks volumes about the resilience of the human spirit,
Yeah.
the ability to hold on to hope even in the face of unimaginable adversity.
But the story of Devil's Island doesn't end there, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It's not just a forgotten relic of the past.
You're right. Today, Devil's Island stands as a chilling reminder of a bygone era. The ruins of the penal colony are now a tourist destination,
Really?
attracting visitors from around the world.
It's fascinating and a little bit unsettling
Yeah.
that people would choose to visit a place with such a dark history.
It is.
What draws them to Devil's Island?
I think it's a complex mix of motivations.
Okay.
Some are drawn by a fascination with history, a desire to see firsthand the remnants of a system that seems so alien to our modern sensibilities.
Yeah.
Others might seek a deeper understanding of the human capacity for both cruelty and resilience.
It's like a physical manifestation of our past mistakes,
Yeah.
urging us to confront them and learn from them.
Exactly. Walking through those ruins,
Yeah.
seeing the cramped cells,
Right.
and imagining the suffering endured within those walls.
Right.
It forces a confrontation with the consequences of dehumanizing punishment.
It's a stark reminder that justice should never come at the expense of human dignity.
It shouldn't.
And it raises questions about our own systems of punishment, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
Even today, we struggle with finding the balance between accountability and rehabilitation.
We do. It's a constant struggle.
So Devil's Island serves as a cautionary tale,
It does.
reminding us to constantly evaluate our approach to criminal justice.
Right.
And to ensure that we never repeat the mistakes of the past.
We cannot erase those chapters from history.
Right.
We must learn from them and strive to create a more just and humane system for all.
So while Devil's Island might be a relic of the past, its lessons remain incredibly relevant today.
They do.
It prompts us to think critically about how we approach justice and punishment,
Yeah.
urging us to create a world where such brutality is never again deemed acceptable.
Absolutely. And it highlights the power of individual stories,
Mhm.
like those of Dreyfus and Papillon,
Yeah.
to expose injustice and spark change.
Right.
Those voices from the past remind us that we all have a role to play in advocating for a more just and compassionate future. And remember, if you're interested in exploring more stories like this, head over to our YouTube channel, Untold Chronicles.
Yeah.
Don't forget to share and subscribe for more captivating deep dives into history's untold tales.
Now, before we wrap up our exploration of Devil's Island, I want to touch on one more aspect of this story.
Okay.
The initial vision for the colony. It wasn't always intended to be a place of pure punishment, was it?
That's a crucial point. In the early days, there was this idea of creating a self-sustaining settlement where convicts would work the land, essentially rehabilitating themselves through labor.
So a glimmer of hope amidst the harsh reality.
Yeah, there was this belief that even those who had committed crimes could contribute to society and eventually reintegrate.
What led to that vision failing so dramatically?
Well, the reality on the ground was far from the ideal. The lack of resources, the brutal treatment by guards, the unforgiving environment, all of these factors undermined any chance of rehabilitation.
It seems like the very system designed to facilitate reform was inherently flawed from the start.
It was, and it's a reminder that good intentions aren't enough.
Yeah.
We need to critically examine the structures we create and ensure they align with our desired outcomes.
So looking back at the history of Devil's Island, what are some key takeaways that we can apply to our own understanding of justice and punishment today? Well, it feels like Devil's Island presents us with this stark warning almost, a cautionary tale about what happens when we prioritize punishment over rehabilitation, when we dehumanize those who have committed crimes, and when we allow systems of power to operate unchecked.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Devil's Island really shows us that we can't just lock people away and expect problems to just magically disappear. It forces us to confront the fact that true justice involves more than just retribution. It requires a commitment to understanding, the root causes of crime, addressing societal issues, and providing opportunities for rehabilitation and reintegration.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we need to be constantly vigilant, scrutinizing our own systems, advocating for change when necessary. It's easy to look at a place like Devil's Island and think, that was a different time, things are better now. But are they really?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
While the physical manifestation of Devil's Island might be gone, the underlying issues that it represents, they persist. Mass incarceration, racial disparities in the justice system, the overuse of solitary confinement. These are all contemporary issues that echo the injustices of the past.
So how do we ensure that we don't just repeat the mistakes of history, albeit in different forms?
It starts with awareness, with recognizing that these issues are interconnected and affect us all. We need to educate ourselves, engage in meaningful conversations, and advocate for policies that promote rehabilitation and restorative justice.
It's about shifting our perspective, isn't it? It's moving away from a purely punitive approach. And recognizing the humanity in every individual, regardless of their past actions.
Exactly. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of society do we want to create? One built on fear and punishment. Or one that prioritizes healing, restoration, and second chances.
It's a challenge.
It is.
But it's a challenge worth embracing.
Absolutely.
And perhaps places like Devil's Island, now open to the public, as historical sites can play a role in this process.
They can. They serve as tangible reminders of the human cost of injustice, prompting us to reflect and to commit to creating a better future. By confronting those dark chapters of history, we can learn from them and work towards a world where such atrocities never happen again.
It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just something we read about in textbooks.
No.
It's a living, breathing force that shapes our present and influences our future. And it's up to each of us to learn from it and work towards a more just and compassionate world.
Well said. And remember, if you found this deep dive insightful and you want to explore more stories that shed light on the complexities of history, make sure to check out Untold Chronicles on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we uncover more of history's untold tales.
Thanks for joining us on this journey to Devil's Island.
It was my pleasure.
It's a place that evokes a mix of emotions, horror, sadness, but also a glimmer of hope for a future where we learn from the mistakes of the past and strive to create a more just and humane world for all?